This is Film Tank.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Oh, I don't know if it's on, but I like it.
You know, we're sitting here like a couple of regular fellas. We're going to make film history.
Can you say that again? Just the way you said it.
Poor baby is starting to lose their hair.
They won't know what they're looking at or why they like it, but they'll know they want it.
It's not real time, it's showtime. Are you guys ready?
Ahoy, everyone, and welcome in to episode 204 of Film Tank. I am Alex Diekman, along with Nick Cheney and Toussaint Egan. Arr.
Per Aspera Film Tank.
Okay.
Wait. Say that again?
Per Aspera Film Tank.
What is per aspera?
Per Aspera means through hardship film tank.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Like in this movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I liked your pirate themed.
Yar.
You know what's weird is my D&D group, not to get too nerdy here.
Yeah.
But we just
nerd.
Yeah. We just switched over to a pirate-themed campaign,
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm in a very nautical mood these days.
Is it a Dungeons and Dragons campaign or is it a
it's
campaign?
a Dungeons and Dragons D20 system.
Okay.
But instead of focusing solely on fantastical adventures, there is an emphasis on
Seafaring.
naval ships and seafaring shanties abound.
Oh, cool.
Abound.
Anyway,
I
it was
love
just a weird coincidence.
Indeed. I actually thought it was a little bit of a weird because I never know what I'm going to say, so
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from.
Well, you know what? I feel like it maybe came from, within. Maybe it's been waiting to get out.
Yeah. Have we done a Pirates of the Caribbean movie yet?
No, and that would be a nightmare. Not that we're never going to do it, but because Alex loves those movies.
Yeah.
So, I would have to mentally prepare.
Yeah.
Unless we're just talking about, the first one.
It would just be the first
Oh,
one,
okay.
I think.
But if you ever wanted to do, a franchise thing, well, I guess not franchise, but, trilogy thing, by the time I got to that third one,
How many are there? 5 now?
Yes.
5, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They never finished that second trilogy, did they?
There
Was
is
it a
no
trilogy?
second trilogy.
No, was it, though? As far as were they linked at all?
No.
The post? Okay, I was just
No,
curious.
the fourth one was about Blackbeard and had Ian McShane in it as the main villain.
Yes, that's right.
And it was
man.
directed by that guy who does musicals. The guy who directed
Kenny Ortega?
No,
I don't know why that's the first person I thought of, but
okay.
the
No, it
High
was
School Musical guy.
he had directed a few.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
From Chicago, he
Yep.
just did something that's musical.
Kanye West?
No,
That would be a different movie.
going
think.
back again.
But anyways, that film.
Rob.
Yeah, there you go.
Rob
Rob
Brydon?
Marshall.
Rob Marshall. There we go.
Rob Brydon.
Yeah, that's
Also
not
be a
the
different
same
movie.
person.
Yeah.
Anyway, I knew it was Rob.
Yeah.
There we go.
So that one came out, and I actually thought that was pretty good. Most people thought it was shit, but that's all right.
The fourth Pirates.
The
movie.
fourth Pirates I thought was pretty good. And then the fifth one came out 2 years ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that was directed by two people, both of which no one had ever heard of really before.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was just not incredible. It just was. It was clear that's done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got distracted. I'm looking at the
Please.
beer that I'm currently drinking,
Uh-huh.
which is, you know what? I'm going to give a shout out to a Chicago brewery, Pipeworks. This is their premium Pilsner beer. I don't know if that's the name of it or if that's just them being extremely blunt about what you're drinking. But on the front, there is a sketch of two unicorns who are definitely giving each other fuck me eyes. So I am sorry that I derailed this podcast, but it was evident, and I did get lost in it.
So looking at that can, so there are the two unicorns.
Yeah,
on the
you
one
know,
side.
I was like looking at you, but now I'm looking at him.
Now I showed it to Toussaint.
Okay, but
okay, fine.
Though across
They're unicorns, okay? They're horny by nature.
across the other side of the river, there is another unicorn who
Yeah.
clearly wants to get involved.
True, because he's got his front leg up.
Yeah.
Like, here we go.
He's ready to fly over that body of
Oh,
water and
man.
make this a threesome.
Okay, so now that we've gone through Pirates of the Caribbean
Yar.
and unicorns,
Yeah.
how about we talk about what our film is?
We're not going to talk about our film right away,
Oh,
though,
we're not?
because we're doing a weekend review.
Oh, that's right.
See, if
yes.
you want to pivot, at least pivot correctly,
Okay,
Toussaint.
well, let's talk about our weekend review.
Okay, so getting this back on track here, as Toussaint is not so subtly hinting that we should do so. We are going to talk about the Brad Pitt film AD ASTRA coming up here shortly. But, as Nick mentioned, we are going to do a short little weekend review. A pretty much staple segment on this podcast that has not been a staple here for a while.
Yeah.
There's no stapling to be found because we haven't done one in quite a while.
Yeah.
Nope.
So, floor is open.
All right, who wants to go first? Do you want me to go first?
Do you want to go first?
yeah.
I feel like when I said the floor is open and then you said who wants to go first, I feel like that's the same thing.
Do either of you want to go first?
I want to go first.
Okay.
Okay. So I have been watching a couple of films for class. So I watched His Girl Friday and The Front Page. I was talking to.
Oh, you actually watched the front page?
Yeah, I watched.
Even I haven't done that yet.
I know. Yeah, it's.
I mean, I'm sure it's worthwhile.
It is, if only to like see like those two works sort of juxtaposed because they're both pulling from the same, the same source material, which is the 1928 like play by Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur. I think that's who it is.
It's close enough.
Yeah, it's close enough. But Ben Hecht is like highly influential for being a Chicago beat reporter turned like Hollywood screenwriter who basically helped to create the text of gangster films, the pre-code gangster films, and basically just one of the most influential screenwriters for creating the popular the pop culture image of Chicago as we know it. So that's for one of my classes, and I watched both of those, and I thought they were okay. I actually just wrote my reaction to both of those films, like, because I had to write a reaction for it.
Yeah.
And the front page is very dated. It's very, very dated. Both films are very dated in the way that they sort of try to valorize a seemingly bygone era of newsprint journalism. And basically they're just like screwball comedies that have their own sort of like takes on them. One of them is like he was very close to the text, which is the front page itself, named after the actual play. And then there's His Girl Friday, which has...
I was going to say, His Girl Friday almost, I wouldn't say separates itself, but elevates it into where you can enjoy it as a screwball comedy.
Oh, I can, yeah.
On its own,
Yeah,
without even getting into
I
that.
think that there are some elements of it that sort of grate on me that make it a little bit harder to watch, simply for the fact that, you have the front page, which, like, all those guys are just white, straight guys speaking in a constant transatlantic accent, constantly riffing on jokes about, like, some woman giving birth to and this is their verbatim words, a colored woman giving birth to a pickaninny in the back of a police paddy wagon amid a manhunt. And yeah, just a lot of like really crass shit, and talking about like a guy who like had the tough luck of shooting a colored policeman in the one city where the color vote matters.
This is all the front page, right?
This is all the front page.
Because I haven't seen it.
Because and I know
I don't remember His Girl Friday.
Yeah, but His Girl Friday has the exact same sort of like those are the
Okay.
constants between all those two, and obviously those are ripped from like the original Ben Hecht play, and it's just kind of dated in that way. I enjoy like His Girl Friday more for the fact that it just introduces this new dynamic for the fact that Hildy, the main character, is not male. They casted Hildy as a woman, and so that opens up a whole different dynamic between her and Walter Burns, who is played by
Cary Grant.
Instead of this weird sort of like codependent like work relationship, it's like a semi like repartee. It's supposed to be a playful like romantic relationship, but actually it sort of curdles towards the end into being like just kind of really fucking toxic for the fact that like by the standards of that time it wasn't toxic at all. It was just expected. It was coded to be like this, where you have like Cary Grant at one point telling Hildy that she is a doll-faced hick, like off the cuff. Like it's just one of the many insults that he throws at her, and then they end up getting fucking married at the end. What the fuck is that shit? It was really. I know it's played for comedy, but it just.
I was gonna say the screwball is where the emphasis is.
Yeah.
Like as far as it's a romance second, but it's a I would say
look how crazy this is.
I would say it's a machine for very sharp barbs being lobbed between the two of them. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Not to dominate this, but I also watched the first 3 episodes of Succession.
Oh.
Because I was like, trolling through the internet, and I reread a couple of reviews of an episode of the second season of Succession called Volter. And I actually went and watched that episode first because I was so interested in watching like the
you probably love the ending of that episode.
I mean, it's
Accurate.
it's accurate. It's so accurate that it's like, yep, this is why I don't want to do this anymore. Yep. So, and that.
What about the line, really quick? Kendall says about they just need adults in the room.
They just need adults in the room. Like I know that was something that was spun off from a Deadspin article of the departing managing editor of that, and that was also one of the reasons I read that article, and then I read the AV Club review / sort of conversation article where all the people were just like talking about it and hashing it out, and that was really fascinating. And then I just decided to go to the first 3 episodes, and I really enjoyed them.
Hell yeah!
Great show.
It's I hate Roman. I hate the character of Roman, played by Kieran Culkin.
Now you hate him because
I don't like him because he exemplifies just the most toxic assholery of the 1%. The guy who literally dangles a $1 million check in front of a migrant boy, and in order to basically spice up his family's little game, and then rips it up in front of him, then gives him a quarter of that check that he ripped up. And
as the show has progressed on, though,
he's one of the more pathetic.
His character hasn't necessarily changed at all.
Yeah,
but
you can understand why he's fucked up.
I mean, you can understand why all of them are, and at the same time,
let's just say other characters are making much worse choices as the show is,
and it has a much larger impact on people as a whole.
And
I could see that
completely ship Roman and the other person that I will not spoil for Toussaint. But yes.
Oh, okay.
You completely what? I'm sorry.
Ship.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex.
You don't know what ship means?
You've been on the internet for how long now?
Nick, you need to explain to him what ship means.
Well, now it sounds fucking stupid if I have to explain it. It's the fandom term for wanting two people to be together in a television or any other media property. And you ship them relationship.
Like a relationship.
Oh, that makes
anyway,
sense.
I ship.
Yeah.
And I say that half jokingly because that's a fucking stupid concept. Yeah. But I also genuinely want any and every scene together between those two people.
And I didn't know who you're talking about. So, yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, but you'll see, because if I said it out loud, it would actually be a spoiler at this point, which is what makes it so great.
Okay, cool. But it's Roman's a dick. I don't like him right now. That one thing he did where he was appointed as COO after his dad had that aneurysm thing or whatever, and he immediately goes to his office and he does that thing to the window.
He jacks off.
Yeah, he jacks off, and I'm just like that, and then he tries to wipe it up, and I'm just like, that is the most disgusting thing I've ever.
I'll say this, not necessarily in defense, but technically speaking, the more you watch the show, Roman is, shall we say, sexually dysfunctional. There's more things that come to light, and in my opinion, there will be more things to come to light that we don't even know.
There's like whispers.
There's
and
something
mentions.
there that goes beyond like that act. Now, the ripping up the check act, like that is the obviously emblematic of the 1% or whatever.
Right.
But his sexual dysfunction may or may not be stemming from actual abuse.
I was gonna say there are whispers in early parts of the series in the first season of him being sexually abused.
Yes.
And it's kind of
Offhand.
It's not offhand. It's just dismissed
as like a
soon
joke.
Oh yes.
Yes, and I think what's troubling is that the series never gets more concrete, and yet those quote-unquote joking accusations start to take more weight the more you see his actions.
Well, the
Anyway.
more you see things like in the second season, we have the Boar on the Floor episode where it's just all of this is just totally normal.
Yep. So, anyway, I love Roman, and I can understand why anyone would
I
hate
mean,
Roman.
and-
I mean, I love Roman as a character to watch, and
There's one character that
dissect.
got a laugh out of me the first episode.
Greg.
It wasn't just Greg.
Greg's the best.
Yeah, Greg's the best. I'm already rooting for Greg because you know what? Like he's just.
I'm sorry if that gone summoned you.
He's the audience surrogate. He's just trying to.
now.
Yeah, for now. Yeah, but I really enjoyed the eldest brother.
Connor.
Connor, yeah,
Yes,
Connor.
I'm a big
when
Alan Ruck
when he's
fan.
talking to the little girl, and he's like, "Yeah, it's like so. I have an aquifer. That means all the water is underneath the ground, and one day water will be more like valuable than gold, and people will be killing each other and get the water." And it's like, "Okay, fine. Okay, it's fine. But I have all the water, and when you need the water, I'll give you the water." I'm just like, wow, it's nice to have that fear confirmed again. In fiction.
His storyline going into the second season and throughout the second season has been a little on the nose.
Yeah, but
Oh yeah,
but it doesn't really matter because he's never an actual prominent figure in the
No.
family.
Yeah,
but
he
when
just doesn't
Like,
want to
it's
even be
perfect for him.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But when he shows up, it is just like,
Yeah.
it's just tough. But I'm glad you're watching the show, Tucson. It's Nick turned me onto it last year after. I think I brought up to you that I heard because I don't I don't get much into television, but I had heard that there were pretty bad reviews early on for that, and you said, "Oh, quite the contrary. It's actually pretty good." And then I got into watching it, and I've enjoyed week to week watching this. That's like a miracle for me to actually stick
True.
with the show
Usually
week to
you kind of
week.
do the like after, which I do for a lot of shows as well.
There's a
but-
lot of shows that I've started to rewatch that I sort of like dip off of. I mean, I still need to get back on Deadwood eventually. But it's like I'm gonna try to like stick this out and see as far as I'm gonna go with it. And for right now, I'm enjoying it. So that's my week in review.
Wonderful.
Right on.
So before Nick, you or myself,
Yes.
you said you had not watched the last episode of Succession
Correct.
yet, and you still have not.
Still.
Oh
correct,
man.
I
Okay.
know. Yeah.
Okay. We'll need to catch up on that
We will.
offline
Yeah.
at some point because
I heard about one thing,
okay.
which is the wonderful rap that occurs.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
So just a white person raps in the latest episode of Succession. So look forward to that.
Is it like Al Pacino get a load of my chocolate blend
Oh,
levels of
it's
rap?
much worse.
Wow.
Much worse.
Wow, that's almost an achievement.
We'll say nothing about it, but you've seen some of his actions, so I'll let you in on who it is. It is Kendall doing a rap for his father at his birthday party, and he's like, he's thinking
Everybody has a very normal reaction to it, which is pure horror. Mm-hmm. But as far as I know, Kendall
I'm
obviously
sure I'm gonna-
goes all in.
I'm sure I'm going to just be recoiling in my seat with absolute horror because those are the kind of scenes that,
That
just
seems like
make
a
me
Toussaint
make me want to
moment.
die. Yeah.
So, anyways, where I was going to
sorry.
is that Kendall has a single episode relationship with a female that comes to an abrupt ending at the end of the episode as he decides he's no longer interested in her. But she brings up, she just flat out asks him, you talk about your dad a lot. What's that all about? And it's like, none of these kids have ever gone to therapy. Like,
and not only have they, but then they try it in the first season for a day, and it's wonderful.
They do, but I guess what I'm saying
they
is
don't
that
genuinely
they don't
try
they
it,
don't they don't go like it's not getting through.
No,
obviously, because like just that one mention of that, he's like, oh,
yeah,
see you later, bye bye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was actually a really good episode. There have been some good ones this season. It's not been like incredible season of television, but I think it's been.
Agree to disagree.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said agree to disagree.
Okay.
I genuinely think, I haven't seen the latest one, but episodes 3 through the last one before this one has been like a hot fucking streak.
Okay.
Starting with Volter, which I thought was fantastic.
Okay.
Then the bomb threat episode, the retreat episode, and the conference episode. Like, I thought those in a row was like the show at its peak for me.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Yes.
you or me?
You.
Okay. So the 3 films that I was wanting to talk about, I actually watched on my trip to Europe.
Were they Euro trip?
No. No. Thank you.
Were they Europe themed?
No. No. I was on my trip to Europe, but they didn't have to be European themed. I don't.
Well, sometimes when you go to Vegas, you watch Casino.
Yeah.
So there's a president's set. Asshole.
Damn, that was a little more aggressive than I was sort of going for, but okay.
I'm sorry. Things got hostile back there.
All right.
So, one of them is Disney that I'm going to talk about, which we were on a Disney cruise while we were over in Europe. And then the other 2 I watched when I was in a weird political mood on the airplane ride back home and decided to watch these 2 films. So the first one is I sat down in the little theater dealie they have on the Disney boat and watched the live-action Lion King.
Wow.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
It was not great.
It's not live action.
And, well, no, but it's certainly something. It's not good, and I mean, you could look
But
at
what is it?
It's a film
Okay.
that is just not that good.
Okay.
We've recently talked about The Lion King on this podcast, so I don't need to.
Yeah.
It's the same exact story.
Yeah.
There are certain parts of it missing that don't really make sense to me. Be Prepared as a song is absent from the film.
Really? Wait,
Yeah.
really? But I listened to it on the soundtrack.
Really?
Yeah, like
It's
she
like-
would tell.
It's like a
Ejiofor
it's a slightly
singing it.
different version.
Oh, okay.
But the dance number and the feeling of that is not present.
Okay,
in
I
the
know
film.
this is a dumb question.
Okay.
But just as a reaction to what you're saying, does Chiwetel Ejiofor like sing it?
Yes,
Okay.
but not the exact same
Just
song.
so that way, I was like, why would they record it if they?
Yes.
Okay, I just
It is
wanted to
not
make sure.
the same exact
Yeah,
song.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So that was a little weird, and that's a small portion of it. But I'm just so tired. Just so tired of the Disney reshoots.
Sound like Llewyn Davis. So fucking
I kind of feel like I just want to pick up my cat and go. I just like Aladdin was like almost broke me, and then this was just the last straw. Like there's just nothing here whatsoever.
But you're still going to go see Maleficent if it hasn't already come out yet.
I'm not. That first Maleficent was trash.
Yeah, I know. It was awful.
And this one looks worse.
Yeah.
This feels like the Alice in Wonderland sequel. So where like everyone flocked to go see Alice in Wonderland, and then the sequel came out, and it came and went.
Yep.
So,
Aladdin was weirdly okay.
I thought it had good
in my
moments.
opinion, at least.
I thought Lion King had some good moments too. I mean, it's still the same story, which is for the most part pretty good. I will say the one thing about the ending sequence is much superior than the original animated film, as that like weird fight between Scar and Simba is just really awkward with the way that it's drawn.
Yeah, that like where it gets weirdly slow motion
Yeah.
for no reason. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And it just looks good here. It looks like the, climactic portion of the Jungle Book where there's darkness and fire and rain and all that shit. So
You know what'd be fun?
if Disney stopped doing reboots of old films,
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
and this.
Yeah, this. Actually, I'm being sort of half tongue-in-cheek when I say this is fun. I'm not entirely sure if this is fun. I think this would be interesting.
Okay.
What if DreamWorks did a live-action remake of Anastasia?
I thought you were going to say Shrek. And I was going to say that's called Shrek the Musical.
Yeah. Because as soon as you start, like mentioning, like, songs
mean,
from Lion King, I think of, in the dark of the night, evil will
speaking,
find her.
Anastasia
Yeah.
has been made before.
Yeah.
So
It has?
Yeah, I mean, I believe it has.
Mhm.
I'm sure it has, because it's a story from real life / from whatever. So Anastasia, in and of itself, it's not like The Lion King, where it's a quote unquote original story, or in this case, adapted text.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's something that could very easily happen. It just wouldn't be a remake. It would just be, this is a new Anastasia story.
Yeah. But what if it was a remake of the animated film?
Well, I'm going to let you tackle that one. What if?
You know what also would be kind of cool?
Oh, okay.
If there was a live action. If there was just a remake. I realized halfway, and I'm just like, wait a minute, it's both. And I was like,
oh, no.
yeah. I was
What?
like, what if there was a
Live
remake?
action version of Super Mario Brothers.
No, a remake
That's a great movie.
or continuation
God.
of The Page Master.
Dude,
That
would suck. But I do
What?
like, I do like the original.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in
I like the
forever,
original.
but
Yeah.
I
See, I got confused with the live action anime thing because
right, because there's
they're both.
yeah,
both.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No idea what you guys are talking about.
The Page Master with Macaulay Culkin. He's a little boy. He gets trapped in a library one day because the thunder ran out. And
he's a scaredy cat.
He's a scaredy cat.
Yeah,
Is he a
scaredy cat, but he
cat?
loves books.
He loves books.
He loves books.
He
and
loves
guess what?
those
He
books.
meets a librarian who's played by who?
Christopher Lloyd.
Oh my god!
Oh,
and
shit.
then as soon as he meets him, he asks, "Do you have a library card?" And it's like, "I don't have a library card." And then he gives him a library card.
He just fucking gives it to
and
him.
he wanders around.
Yeah.
And then he's swept up into this weird ass fucking Boschian portal.
Oh, it's never ending story shit. Let me tell you.
It's terrifying, actually. It's
Yeah.
actually initially, like, the actual, like, ceiling starts melting and just, like, pooling
Tucson
around
is
him.
burying the lead because he's a fucking cartoon after that.
He's a fucking cartoon after that. And then he jumps in between, like, different stories. Like, he goes to,
we're slowing down here.
he goes to Frankenstein World. He goes to...
Yeah, I don't remember the entire Wikipedia summary. But
he goes to Gulliver's Traveler World.
he does, yeah. He meets 3 books that
Three-
are literally
he
the
meets
personifications.
the
That the books are called like
Yes.
adventure, horror, and
And
something
fantasy.
else, and fantasy.
Yeah.
And they're voiced by people like Patrick Stewart and 2 other people. I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
So anyway, that movie fucking rules.
Yeah, it's great. You should rent it on VHS.
Yeah.
Okay. I will.
Oh, I have that puffy case.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Fucking
Yeah.
jacked off in it.
I didn't go that far. I thought it was a great movie.
I'm sorry. I thought we were on the same page.
That's fine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt somebody
Hijack
from.
that?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
I hijacked
We talked about a lot of stuff. You were talking originally about having seen. No, we were watching live action Lion King and then 2 political films.
Yes. So I've got nothing
But
really
we don't
else.
like to get political on this podcast.
Never.
Well, yes, we do.
Thanks, Tucson. Not much else to say about Lion King other than I thought it was super mediocre and really leaning more towards not very good.
Yeah.
The 2 political films that I watched were the Christian Bale-led Dick Cheney film Vice, which I finally gave some time to, and also the Hugh Jackman film The Frontrunner.
Yeah.
So The Frontrunner I actually thought was pretty good. That was a film that did not do well at the box office last year, and really no one talked about it during its release, or
Is that directed by Jason Reitman?
yes,
I think so, right?
Yeah,
And it's kind of weird because he's really fallen, other than I guess going to do a Ghostbuster movies because nepotism. But
yeah, we'll see
Anyway.
if that works out.
there was a
mean,
time when I
nepotism.
used to get excited for Jason Reitman movies.
Yeah,
Why?
And that was a time before subtlety.
yeah. I mean,
No.
he's done good work.
Go back. What do you mean about nepotism for Justin
Because
Reitman?
Ivan
Because
Reitman,
yeah, his father.
the guy who made the original Ghostbuster. So Jason Reitman, who's literally been bombing all over the place, gets to make the new Ghostbusters
Oh, okay.
because the female Ghostbusters is female? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just fucking stupid. He's the one who then said, I'm giving Ghostbusters back to the fans.
Back to the fans.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
that was a guy who was on a roll.
That's what I mean.
He had Thank You for Smoking,
Yep.
Juno, and
Yep.
Up in the Air,
And
in
Young
a
Adult.
3-year in a 4-year stretch.
Sorry, but that is
Yep.
the end of the streak. That is a great movie.
And then he had Labor Day, that
Yep.
horrendous Josh Brolin, Kate Winslet movie.
Yes, where yeah.
And then that really awkward Men, Women, and Children film.
Yeah. Adam
with,
Sandler
Adam
tried to
Sandler.
act, but
Yeah.
without a good director. So,
Yeah. So,
but I am excited for Uncut Gems. Shout out to A24.
Oh my god, I'm so excited for that movie.
Have you seen Good Times?
No,
You really should.
I want to.
You would like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
So, anyways, the frontrunner centers around Hugh Jackman playing U.S. Senator Gary Hart during the 1987 primaries, as he was the obvious frontrunner and then was undone by a sex scandal that he had with somebody.
He had sex with?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
that's
the only
usually
reason
how
I
it
was
happens.
the only reason I was a little tentative is because the film does a really nice job of showing him really never like getting caught in the act or anything like that. Just a lot of, I don't want to say circumstantial, but a lot of,
Circumcision?
oh God.
You just walked into that one. I knew that was going to happen.
Okay. A lot of, there's just people gathering evidence who work for an actual newspaper, but at the same time are very tabloidy, as they are literally outside in the bushes trying to catch him walking out with this young lady. And at the same time, this is a really weird transition for the presidency and just politicians in general, as now there's a much different media focus on holding people accountable for treating women like objects. Or
Is there?
well, there was for a time,
Yeah.
a little bit.
I mean, we just elected a person who was able to literally say that,
Yep.
oh, none of that matters. That's how males behave.
Yep. Just elected him.
Pretty sure Gary Hart was not accused of rape.
No. Anyways, there are very high highs during the film.
High highs.
Yes, that I thought were quite good. And I think this is definitely underrated, and I would recommend it really to anybody who's a fan of political dramas. There's also pretty good fucking casting in this film. Other than Hugh Jackman, who's pretty strong, you have Vera Farmiga, J.K. Simmons.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jason Reitman, Revolving Door.
yeah. But then other people show up like Alfred Molina and Kevin Pollak. Even Mike Judge plays a character in
really?
this film randomly.
He's always fun when he pops up in his own films. So
Yeah. So it's just a good film that I think most people who like movies and are interested in kind of political procedurals would find interesting. And then the last film is Vice, which I did for sure enjoy, but I feel like I'm getting a little tired of that method that's being done right now by Adam McKay.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, in the sense that he's done it twice now.
I know.
So I can. I mean, did it work as well as it did in The Big Short? Absolutely not.
No.
But
But I thought some of the gimmicks throughout this film were a little stupid.
yeah, I'd agree.
Like the sort of false ending halfway through to show this is he who went on to live a good, and like the credits start rolling. I was just rolling my eyes at that shit. But overall, as a movie, this was an interesting look at Dick Cheney from that perspective and the perspective that I think most people have. Again, I just said that after the Gary Hart thing, and here we are.
I would say the perspective most people have retroactively, and I know that there will be a bunch of liberals who will put up pitchforks and say, "No, I've always had that," which is certainly true, but let's not pretend like I don't know. The certain uptick in wokeness makes us more and better informed, and we should not be afraid to admit that we learn things as time goes on.
Yeah.
And you didn't always know everything from the very beginning. Like, you could have hated Dick Cheney for obvious reasons, and yet you still could find out more shit about him. I just find this whole, I hated him as much as you hate him now from the moment he was put into office. And it's like, you
most
barely
people
probably
didn't
know
who Dick
he
Cheney was.
Yeah.
And that was part of the whole story,
Right.
is that he was this guy who operated under the radar, who actually made all the chess moves behind the scenes. So I thought another solid performance by Christian Bale, and I thought some other people here were good as well. But again, some of the gimmicky things here in this film, I just didn't really love them. I thought they were just kind of exhausted at that point, and it just really just like everything involving Jesse Plemons' character, I thought was just kind of stupid.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I thought that one was fine.
I'm sorry,
Methadamon.
Yeah.
I actually liked that.
Okay.
Mostly for the payoff. I thought that was actually the only time when a gimmick was slightly, pointed in its, purpose, so to speak. But I agree with all the schlock gimmicks of the credits and the freeze frames and all that shit was pretty stupid.
Yeah.
I especially hated the final fucking moments of the movie.
Oh, the breaking fourth wall type thing.
You all voted this in. Where were you? And like, that fucking shit is smug as hell. So I get weirdly defensive of this movie, considering the fact that I actually think it's pretty much mediocre at best. Only because I read so many reviews where people were like, I don't need a movie to tell me that Dick Cheney is a monster. It's like, okay, that's great that you feel that way, but if the worst thing is that a movie can possibly convey to a generation, and I'm not including myself, but who were not old enough to even live through 9/11, who Dick Cheney is, like, I don't think that's, like, should be wiped from existence.
A pretty large majority of this film is Dick Cheney pre-presidency.
True.
It's a lot of him operating with Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah.
Also, some of the early portion of his, early 20s, late teens, where he was just clearly a boozing disaster.
Yeah, and that we've already seen with, like, what's his name's W. Yeah. Oliver Stone. I personally mostly enjoyed this in that kind of, like, second hour when I saw flashes where it could have been like the Pop Boiler 9/11 reaction film, where it only really focused in on his abhorrent behavior of bureaucratic manipulation of the war in the Middle East.
This film was very interested, and it's not like it spent the entire runtime focused on it, but is very interested in pointing out that he did not seem very concerned while 9/11 was happening. So, yeah. And again,
he's just a dick.
Haha.
And I hate the fact that my name rhymes with his.
Very well. So anyways, I watched those films and other ones when I was on my little European adventure. Finding time for movies on long trips like that is always something I try to do.
Alex Diekman, Far From Home.
Thank you. Oh, Spider-Man's back, by the way.
Yeah, he's back, and I just posted the conversation we had about Spider-Man, quote unquote, leaving.
You were so excited when they stuck it to Disney.
So, well, I wasn't excited. I was just saying I genuinely think that that's a good thing if it held. I'm pretty sure I said in the episode, no, I don't think that.
Yeah, I'm
but
being
I'm sorry, I'm not going to be like apologetic for the idea that I think that could have been a good thing. Not necessarily for Tom Holland. Like, I think he was a good Spider-Man. I think whatever. But no, I don't think Disney should be able to make every property.
And here they are. So, Nicholas.
Oh, hi.
You are still on this podcast, and you still
Oh.
have not given your week in review yet.
Give your week in review.
Well, when I was just a little boy. Just kidding. I want to talk about three things. First thing is a TV show. The other two things are movies. So really quickly, I want to give a shout out to the Purge television series. It is about to debut its second season, or later this month. I know, Tucson's getting me a very befuddled look.
I thought that was just a limited series.
We all thought that. But you know what? I bet people thought The Purge was just an experiment. And then it became a daily routine. Not daily routine. A daily routine.
Yeah, don't
Every
be out
goddamn day.
Don't be out at night. Every town is a sundown town for everyone, not just black people. It's just everybody. Every town's a sundown town.
We have fun here. The Purge, I'm talking specifically about the first season, which pretty much aired about a year ago at this time, last year. And I'm finally catching up with it in anticipation of the second season. And I bring this up for two reasons. One...
You love The Purge.
What?
You love The Purge.
I like The Purge. Quite a bit, actually. In fact, the TV series is pretty much cementing all the goodwill that I had slightly built up from the films. And I am now fully, fully on the Purge bandwagon as a piece of property.
You've watched all the films up till this point.
True, and now I watched the TV show. It is in no way a perfect thing whatsoever, but I am genuinely fascinated by the mythos that has been built up in this universe. And the TV series so far has done a very good job of actually kind of looking at it slightly more in depth, because obviously it's got 10 hours instead of, 90 minutes. And the movies started to get a little bit repetitive, so then the TV show came at just the right point when they stopped doing the movies. I'm sure they'll do another one at some point, but they're at least indefinitely hiatuses. And the TV series, the first season, takes place across 10 episodes, all on one Purge night. So it's not a far cry from what the movies were portraying, but you definitely get a lot more lived-in moments of like people and how they go about on the night of. And we follow 3 or 4 disparate storylines that, spoiler, do connect by the end of the season, but definitely takes a long time. Like, you really are following 4 or 5 different threads, completely separate from each other for a very long while to actually kind of live in them. And there are various flashbacks to earlier moments from their lives, so you do get a glimpse of what their lives were like before this fateful Purge night and whatnot. But I really give the show credit for going all out, I would say, in fleshing out the way this political party, the NFFA, the
New Founders of America.
New Founding Fathers.
New Founding Fathers of America.
And the way, well, but here's the thing. I've always had some questions about the movie's mythos and some of the claims that they make. And
It's almost as if they're just making it up as they go.
Okay, well, maybe, but the show is at least reckoning with some of the claims that they made. For example, it was explicitly stated that something that was presented in the movies was an outright lie, for understandable reasons, which is that, as you know, they always said over and over that studies showed that crime rates go down if you do the Purge, right? After they finally did the successful experiment, and the TV show does expose that is a lie perpetrated by fake scientific research funded by and it's not saying that that's a revelatory, twist or anything like that, but I like...
Just an admission.
Yeah, and I like that the TV show is at least fleshing this out, and it's getting slightly beyond its B-movie, trappings. And it's still very much in that vein of just kind of cheap violence and slightly hokey drama, but I don't know. I'm pretty much sold by it. And the second reason I bring it up is because I said this to you, Tucson.
Yep.
When we went and saw the first Purge.
Not the first Purge, but the latest Purge.
The fourth film in the series called The First Purge.
Yes.
And And I said this to you, where they had just announced that they were going to do the TV series, and I said, man, I really hope that if they do a TV series, that what I would really love is that you actually show me a TV series where you see what life is like on the 364 days. Now, we didn't get that, obviously, right, in the first season. Yeah. The second season, we are.
Oh,
the
yes.
second season, actually, the first episode is Purge Night for these completely new characters, and the other 9 episodes are going to show you the fallout of what it's like to live under this government and under the kind of gallows hanging axe of a purge night that has both come but also is to come and whatnot. Right. And I don't know, I'm just very fascinated by this little franchise that as much as like it is the antithesis, I would say, of something like Happy Death Day, which I love that first entry, like genuinely, but like that second movie pretty much backed itself into a corner to say, like, we have nowhere else to go. Whereas The Purge, for all of its faults and whatever, is at least saying, well, we can explore this and we can explore that. And I don't know.
It really didn't have, like, the first Purge movie, The Purge, didn't have any, like, lofty aspirations for it. It was really it was really just a paper thin pretense for a twist on a
domestic
home invasion horror film. That's all it was.
And it had Ethan Hawke, which helped it.
Yeah, it did. And then it just sort of like spun out of that and sort of dovetailed with the trajectory of our own political moment sort of just like
people say
siphoned off
cheap,
of that.
But I'm like, you know what? So is our fucking president. So, you know, whatever, it works. And
who says we don't get political on here?
Ooh. And I will plug really quick that the fourth movie, The First Purge, is a genuinely great movie, and it is actually much more of a closer successor to blaxploitation films than the fucking new Shaft remake or the Superfly remake.
True.
So it kind of blows my mind. That
haven't even seen like the new Superfly or the new Shaft, but I can already like having seen the film, is like it's got more in common with blaxploitation than.
The other thing I want to mention really quick is I've recently watched the 2 films by the director Arthur Marks, who is an exploitation filmmaker from back in the 70s, and boy howdy, he is clearly one of the, and I kind of mentioned this on Letterboxd, so you can look at my profile there if you want more thoughts. But he is definitely and clearly a forbearing influence on Quentin Tarantino. Like, I kind of stated, I'm like, if Tarantino outright steals from the likes of Sergio Corbucci or, you know, the Miko Kaiji vehicle films, whatever, I think it's Arthur Marks that is his actual spiritual influence and the person he most aped for his style and his overall predilection for crime sagas and whatnot. I watched 2 of his films. One is called The Roommates, and the other one is called Bonnie's Kids. Both very different in plot and whatnot. The Roommates is more of a carefree kind of hippie exploitation that ends up being a slasher by the end, but that's also slightly on the back burner. But the camaraderie between the 4 female leads in that movie was weirdly refreshing for that era in a way that it genuinely reminded me of what he achieved in something like Death Proof, and where he had those female characters just going on and gabbing about whatever they wanted to talk about in the same way he let the male characters do in Reservoir Dogs, and that was kind of a long time coming and overdue. But then you have something like Bonnie's Kids, which I just watched the most recently, and like there's so many scenes out of that feel like they are ripped out of an Elmore Leonard novel as shot by Tarantino. It is a ragtag heist tale about 2 sisters who are kind of hiking cross country because they killed their stepfather because he's a piece of shit who sexually abuses them. So they have this kind of like vengeful fury of someone like Beatrix the Bride, who like whoever they come in contact with, like God help them because they don't take shit from anybody. But as they go on, they learn about this possible briefcase, if that rings any Pulp Fiction bells, that in this case has or hosts mafia money, and they'll do everything they can to try to get it. And there are scenes where that money and briefcase changes hands, and there's a bus terminal scene where different characters are not interacting but are present in the same time and space and whatnot. And yeah, besides the fact that obviously I think Tarantino loves Arthur Marks. In fact, Bonnie's Kids is called Bonnie's kids, but Bonnie is a character you never see because Bonnie is their mother who died before the film ever began, and that's probably where their trouble started because they lost their mother figure and were only at the vice and abuse of men. And I think there is actually a pointed reference in Pulp Fiction to call your segment the Bonnie situation and never show Bonnie, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it was just one of the things where I just wasn't expecting that whatsoever. And like I said earlier, he never, I think, outright steals from Arthur Marks in any way, but I definitely... I'm getting more and more in tune with pretty much everything Tarantino has ever watched, and it's becoming fascinating, I think, to see what he steals, what he apes, and what he kind of homages to. And I don't mean any one of those three as a pejorative. Like, I think he's his own, filmmaker,
Director,
but he certainly is more interested than probably any other living filmmaker in continuing the legacy of the films he grew up on, and Arthur Marks is definitely a staple of that, just based off the two films I've watched.
We've talked about it when we've done episodes on Tarantino films. We've done a few of them on this podcast.
Yeah.
But that he is in such a weird spot where he is no doubt a mainstream filmmaker who is making films that are definitely not mainstream.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like
He's cut out a niche for himself.
He has, and I kind of understand the idea that there is something to be said about, like, for example, like Django Unchained. I also rewatch. I also watched for the first time the original Django with Franco Nero, Sergio Corbucci film.
Okay.
And yeah, if you watch that, you kind of realize that Tarantino pretty much outright steal things from it, from the music cues to iconic shots and whatnot. And he's starting to, I would say, not become lessened in my mind, but he's starting to become a different figure, whereas I think of him less now as someone who is a master filmmaker. Well, he is that, in my opinion at least. But I also am starting to see him as like a DJ who is able to put two records on the table, and people didn't realize how well blaxploitation goes with this Sergio Corbucci long lost spaghetti western, and it does. And so, while I am slightly more gravitating these days to things like The Hateful Eight, which has its own share of influence or whatever, but certainly bears a more original mark, which I think is why a lot of people were turned off by it, because he was able to pretty much go for a while there on his own rambling and whatnot. I don't know. He's just becoming more and more fascinating, even when I find where he's getting his shit from. So yeah. Separate from Tarantino, though, Arthur Marks films, at least the two I've seen, and I know he's been well regarded in cult exploitation circles for his other works. He's a fantastic director, and I would definitely urge anyone to try one of his films, particularly the two that I mentioned, which were The Roommates and Bonnie's Kids.
Wonderful. Well, if you out there have any thoughts on any movies or TV shows or anything like that you've been watching recently, always feel free to send them on to us at filmtankshow@gmail.com or to try to find us. It won't be that hard to on Facebook, Twitter, or kind of Instagram at Film Tank Show. There's not a lot of contact happening there. It's just images on Instagram. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Are you doing anything on Instagram?
Not recently.
Okay, because
no.
I haven't.
No.
That's the one thing I just don't even touch.
You can find us on Instagram, but like...
I mean, we are there.
We have a page. It's just old.
Yeah.
So
we're here.
Also, if you have any thoughts on the film we're going to chat a little bit about, you can always send them on to us, too. That movie, oh boy, Nick is going to make a post. Okay, that's better.
There we go.
That was live.
Oh, boy.
Incredible. That is... You don't get that. You don't get, like, live, in-studio
That's beautiful.
posting.
Guys.
Wonderful.
That's going on everything.
You just don't get that from podcasts too often, but here we are.
Yeah.
So in like 6 weeks, someone can listen to this and go back and look at that post then.
Yeah.
It'll be easy to find because it'll probably be the last one that we had. So that's good.
Yeah.
So the film we're talking about is the Brad Pitt-led space drama, which is Ad Astra, a film that I was super psyched for this year and had been interested in ever since sort of the storyline and actual film was announced. And the original trailer came out, I don't know, maybe like 4 months ago, and I was super jacked after the trailer and went to go see the movie, and here we are. Yep. So the film was directed by James Gray, who's been doing... he's been pretty active, I would say, in the last 4 to 5 years, as he directed The Immigrant in 2013, and then a few years ago directed The Lost City of Z, a film that Nick has seen. And
I've seen both of those.
Yep. I remember you saying that you did not love The Lost City of Z.
No, I thought it was very boring.
Yep.
And I try not to say that about movies, because usually boring is a sign that it's not for you. Like, you can think something bad, but if you think something boring, whatever. Anyway, I remember watching that thinking, though, that I just don't give a shit about Indiana Jones-esque exploration films, you know? So I kind of actually remember thinking, if this was in space, I'd like it more. I was challenged.
James Gray also probably led Joaquin Phoenix into his...
Renaissance?
I was going to say, he at least led him into delving into his trying to change his image in some way.
The reconnaissance?
Boy. Because Joaquin Phoenix did 2 films with him back-to-back in 2007 and 2008 with We Own the Night and Two Lovers. So James Gray, definitely not necessarily a bad filmmaker. He's made a lot of films that people have given good ratings to and good scores over time. And he directed this film, which, in addition to Brad Pitt, has Tommy Lee Jones, Ruth Negga, also Donald Sutherland. Did I say that wrong? I'm sorry.
No, it's just that's a very dangerous name.
Yeah,
for white people.
Yeah.
That's the one time
you pronounced it. You pronounced it correctly. You didn't do anything wrong.
I had a flashback to the line in Popstar with, "Oh, you went with a hard R." Anyway.
So in addition to her, who will not be named or just called Ruth from now on, also Donald Sutherland is here, and then a bunch of character actors that people have probably seen here or there, although Liv Tyler does get like 40 seconds of screen time in this.
And no dialogue.
No.
Barely dialogue.
The one actress from Russian Doll and...
Tasha Leone.
Yep.
Oh, yes. Talk about even less screen time.
Yeah, but at least she makes an impression.
Yeah. It's a very interesting story about how she got that cameo role, which we will talk about later on this episode.
Boom.
Very good. So astronaut Roy McBride undertakes a mission across an unforgiving solar system as he tries to uncover the truth surrounding his missing father and the Doom expedition that now, 30 years later, threatens the universe.
Father, always you look over me.
Wow. That was good. Thank you. Thank you for that. I wasn't expecting a Tree of Life reference, but you know what?
Brad Pitt vehicle.
It's actually very apt
it's AD ASTRA
to cite that film concerning what this film is actually about.
Yeah, I've got thoughts.
Yeah.
So I guess I will take the baton.
Please.
First. Okay.
Fucking go.
Nobody else wanted to go first.
Go.
I was super jacked for this movie, as there are not many films left this year that I'm really looking forward to, but this was definitely one of them. I went to go see this the first night. It was in theaters, and actually I went with my wife. We had a little date night to go see this. My wife had a date night. That's fine. No more Borat references on this episode, at least.
Not until our Borat episode.
Ooh. Do a double episode of Borat and Bruno.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Draw the line.
That's not going to happen.
Drawing the line there.
That's not going to happen to me.
Okay, let's put it this way. Have you at least seen Bruno?
No.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
I loved it when it came out. I'd probably be embarrassed to watch it now.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's not great.
I don't think either one of those quote-unquote gimmicks are entirely without value.
Sure.
But certainly you can get in 2 minutes what he puts into 100 minutes. Anyway.
Right.
So we went and saw Ad Astra, and I was very excited to spend time in the theater to see it. And I will say, I don't feel like I was disappointed with this film, even if it wasn't as good as I was hoping it was going to be, in my opinion. I think this is a movie that is wanting to tell a very specific story, and in my opinion, unfortunately, spends too much time on that very specific plot point throughout the entirety of the film, while missing out on the extraordinary universe this film creates without even trying, it seems. Because to me, the best parts of this film are the universe that is in the backdrop, that is the backdrop for the story that is happening in this film, that is almost like a no thought. They just created this because we need to have a backdrop for this story. We can't set it in modern times because we can't go to Saturn, so we'll make it a different kind of universe. And here's these interesting parts of it, but those aren't really a story here. And to me, I understand why the filmmaker would do that, and I understand what story that he wanted to tell. And I understand also, too, obviously, the character that Brad Pitt wanted to play, apparently, in this film. But to me, the first hour and 15 minutes of this film are by far the best part of it. Everything concerning him on Earth, him going to the moon, everything about that scene on the moon, which is absolutely fantastic, I thought. We see that sort of alternate universe where there is just a modern city on the moon. There are no fucking rules on the moon. There are just pirates and lawless people who are going out to try to kill people, and no one can stop them. No one has any jurisdiction over on them. It's literally the fucking Wild West on the moon.
You know what that kind of reminded me of? As soon as he landed on the moon, it reminded me of the episode of Futurama where they go to the moon, and then Fry goes through the whole the history of how they actually got on the moon. It's there's whalers on the moon. There's whalers on the moon. It feels like that bullshit where it's just all the wonder and all of the aspiration has just been soaked out of it, and now it's been replaced by a fucking Applebee's.
Yep.
There's an Applebee's on the moon.
That's about right.
Yep.
Early on, too.
But you can't beat their appetizer combo.
Early on, especially with some of the testing that, and some of the what's the term for it again? Sorry, the psych evaluation that Brad Pitt is continuously going through throughout this.
Thank God we have that. Otherwise, we wouldn't know where its head's at.
Yep. It's not like he has
I'm starting already.
a monologue.
I was definitely getting, actually, from his character, especially early on in this film, I was definitely getting a big time Ryan Gosling vibe from
Blade Runner 2040.
Yeah,
yeah, but he never talks, and now I understand why.
Yeah, no. At any rate,
Yeah, but no, you're right in that with him at least to do the whole human check or non-human check.
Imagine if
well.
Imagine if Kay from Blade Runner 2049 had a monologue, like that one bad cut of Blade Runner where they forced Harrison Ford to do a monologue. He'd be so fucking annoying.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand Kay if he did that.
Yeah.
So anyway, continue.
So, I really enjoyed early portion of this film. Everything I thought with Donald Sutherland was really good, as he's just kind of this old, seriously in the grave, pretty much, character who's wanting to try to find Tommy Lee Jones, but at the same time knows he's never going to make it all the way to Neptune. So he just kind of is along for the ride with Brad Pitt until he's having a near-death experience, and then he can kind of give him the information that he could have given him years ago, but we need this plot to move. So, but everything on Mars, everything that happens on the moon, as I already mentioned, and sort of everything that the action moves with in the early parts of this film I thought was pretty fascinating. I loved a lot of the... I guess what the best term is it? I liked a lot of what the idea of like the stakes that hang in the balance for Brad Pitt's character early on, as he's given this sort of secretive mission where he's told, well, you need to do this. You can't tell anybody about it, but you're always on this mission no matter what happens. So there are a lot of events that happen, like him being taken away from the mission and him being told, you're not on the mission anymore, you need to go in this room and we'll take you back to Earth when we feel like it.
Good line, by the way, when
What's
they
that?
do take him off and they say your personal connection is jeopardizing the mission. It's like, well, your personal connection is the only reason why there is a mission.
I was going to say, it's the mission.
Yeah,
right?
and it's the only reason why you have any progress now.
But it is
Yeah.
very, that
It
is
is. I say
a
that in a good
very 21st century business risk management type of we want to have as much control and be as safe as we possibly can, so you are off because you could fuck this up. Everything, I will say, after he sends off and kills his fellow crew members, which is really not hit on after that, which is kind of bizarre. But
He didn't try to kill him.
Oh, okay. That doesn't mean he didn't.
I mean, in a court of law, I know. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It's like violence just follows him everywhere he goes, like everywhere, even in space.
Yeah. But at the same time, he also saves the universe in a way because he stops Tommy Lee Jones from doing whatever he was doing that apparently was going to end civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
Everything then with Tommy Lee Jones, I was just not super into, and it's the biggest parts of the film, so maybe I'm a bad person for not really loving it, but I thought it was just kind of boring, and it just decided to trade in the idea of this very interesting alternate universe that we are watching for this really just kind of run-of-the-mill conversation between Pa and his son on the Neptune system, and I haven't talked to you in 30 years, I never cared about you, and like Tommy Lee Jones is way too coherent to have been sitting by himself for the last 30 years on a spaceship.
We learned in Armageddon that space madness is a thing, and the idea that Tommy Lee Jones hasn't succumbed to this is frankly baffling.
He's way too well put together to have been sitting there by himself for 30 years.
One of these days, really quickly, the three of us have to watch Armageddon with the Ben Affleck commentary.
Okay.
Because it's genuinely one of the best things ever
Done.
recorded.
Okay.
Sold.
Just saying.
No problem.
I will. Oh no, I have it. I have the Criterion. Yeah. Okay. We can do that.
All right, cool. Let's do that. Yeah.
So those are pretty much all my initial thoughts. I thought this was actually really good, but the ending portion of this film I thought left a little bit to be desired.
Okay.
Toussaint.
Yeah. I went to go see this. I didn't really have any high expectations for it. I mean, I had seen trailers for it. I didn't entirely understand what it was about, but I had heard enough positive buzz that I was more inclined to just sort of, just like go see it. And I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. So far as this being a space adventure film, it's not that. And as much as I think that some of the broad strokes of this universe are very interesting in the implication of like what does a colonized inner solar system look like from a very plausible sort of like matter-of-fact perspective. I mean, like the moon is right fucking there. Of course, that's going to be the first.
The Expanse.
I mean, I've watched The Expanse and I love The Expanse. But in this case, I thought that it's very interesting. But it is entirely not the point of this film. It's like really, it's just watching this guy go through a midlife crisis, figuring out that he's basically been pursuing a line of work in order to like get closer to his father and realizing at the same time he both like misses and hates his father. It just so happens he's an astronaut, and basically going to the end of the universe in order to sort of like find closure with his father and also prevent him from doing something that could result in the end of the human species. But even that is like that is not really what is driving like Brad Pitt's character to finally get there and like do what he needs to do. I actually really enjoyed the interaction between Tommy Lee Jones and Brad Pitt in that.
Cool.
Just because although he doesn't have space madness or anything like that, it feels like that rings true for the fact that he has been alone, the only live person on that station for so long, and that he's been so divorced from human contact that he has just no pretense for any type of like humility, platitude, just general like social intelligence whatsoever. All of those attributes have atrophied, and they've all been sort of focused on his work, and that he's able to just look at his son, who he has not seen in over 30 years, who is now a grown man, and that he's able to look him in the cold light of space and be like, oh, you're here? I never really even thought about you. And you're expecting like Brad Pitt's character to blow up at that, but really he's just like, no, I already knew that long before I even got here. I just needed to I needed to be here and to know that I tried to bring you back. Yep. It's not even about like a matter of like closing reconciliation or anything like that. It's like I need to just know that I did try to do that, because he's like wrestling with all these different sort of emotions about his dad, where he's talking about how like he basically does not have any children. He doesn't have, like, he already broke up with his partner, his significant other, because of the fact that his father orphaned him and widowed his wife, his mother, and he just didn't want to do that to somebody else because of the fact of him like pursuing this line of work. And then also understanding on a deeper level is like, no, it's not even there is that, but there also is this sort of like brewing animosity and contempt and aloofness that he has sort of inherited from his father, and that he is trying to wrestle with and trying to like find a peace with that and peace within himself and with other people. And the only way, like one of the only ways for him to actually be able to reconcile that within himself is to actually sort of like go to the source of that, which is his own father, and just try.
And in a way, I would say really quick that him cordoning off his own existence from his ex-wife and whatnot is exactly what he doesn't want to be, and he doesn't realize that that's what's more influencing his father has influenced than because he thinks he's doing a good thing by not doing that, when in reality that's probably the biggest DNA within him of just saying like, nope, this doesn't matter to me enough to fight for or anything like that.
And I didn't mind Brad's monologue throughout this. I thought that his acting throughout the film was pretty well. I think he really expressed and communicated like the character's mood through just like the tiniest little intonations, like the way that his eyes look, the way like I think that he carried a lot of the sort of emotional weight of this film through just like his simple facial gestures.
Yeah, this is a pretty, I don't want to say this is like anything like a passion project or anything like that, but this is definitely a Brad Pitt driven film.
Yeah,
I mean by his production company.
Yeah.
Like he's definitely
Plan B.
He's definitely very much involved in a lot of different aspects of the actual film that happened. So.
Wish now a voice would say that in the same voice I just did every time his production company.
Sounds like the old Yahoo voice.
Yeah.
Plan B.
When they're on the moon and they're going through the space chase, as ridiculous as that fucking sounds,
that was fantastic.
I remember that one of the lines that I actually did enjoy.
Heavily influenced, by the way, from Doris Wisham's Nude on the Moon, the nudie cutie from the 60s.
Thank you for that, Nick.
You're welcome.
So there's a line that Brad Pitt has where he's just like, oh, here we go again, just like fighting over resources. And he's like, why the fuck am I even here? It's like he's so over this shit. He's so over this shit that he can be on the moon during a high-speed chase. And he's like, I don't give a fuck.
Well, clearly also, no one else is able to, like... That's one of the other things that are a little over the top with his character in terms of hammering it home to the audience. But he is able to, like, almost have a superpower to, like, keep his shit together. I mean, the idea of him just taking over that rover and getting it into where they need to be, taking over and landing that space vehicle on Mars. I mean, just any situation whatsoever, he's like, no, I got this.
It might be some mildly sociopathic tendencies. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
Death seems to follow him around all the time. I mean, it's not like he tries to incite it, though. It just sort of fucking happens, like with the fucking space baboons. What did you think about the space monkeys?
I thought that was I
thought that was fucking ridiculous at first, and I was just like,
it was
the more I think about it, it's like, yeah, I could see that happening.
As the film progressed, it actually, to me, like, I know where they came from, in terms of they were being created on this space vehicle, but at the same time, for what this film is trying to say and the message that it has at the very end of it, and not just in everything happening with Brad Pitt, but also the message with the father and everything with looking for life outside, that just didn't make sense. That whole scene was just kind of bizarre.
How so?
Oh, I was just going to say, because it's like my very first gut reaction to when the space baboon showed up is like, holy shit, here's an admission that there is life and crazy shit happening outside of Earth, and here it is. Obviously didn't end up being that, but
I
it was
didn't
just
expect space horror with space baboons.
Yeah, I don't know.
Movie.
Well, I have some thoughts about that.
We'll talk about get to you soon.
We're also only a couple years removed from the movie Life, which I thought was just terrible. And any sort of...
Was that the one with...
Jake Gyllenhaal,
Ryan
Reynolds.
It was a secret Venom prequel.
But it wasn't.
That was the fan theory surrounding it.
Okay. Because everything's connected.
Yeah.
Everything has to be connected.
But this just never felt like a spaceship with a xenomorph on the loose type stand-in thing going on. And I didn't need creatures in space, and it doesn't really go. It goes on for like 30 seconds, but at the same time,
I'll say two things really quick, just about space baboons. One, the reason why that scene didn't particularly work for me was that was such a external force on what's a pretty internal movie. You know, it's about him and his relationship with his father and how that manifests in his journey and whatnot. So, whenever something like that, and that's really one of the only things, but crops up, which is extremely out of his control and literally nature, it bored me. Is there something you want to add to
No.
that? Okay, because you're smiling, so it seems like there's something.
Nope.
Okay. The second thing I was going to say, however, as I say that, I would be remiss if I didn't point out the reason why it worked for me on paper is that neither one of you have said yet, but you do. I found it to be a tongue-in-cheek joke because we did send monkeys into fucking space. I know you guys know that, but we haven't said it yet. So I did like that as a manifestation of like what started as a pure and innocent project, i.e., going into space, will end up being possibly the downfall and the splintering of the human race in and of itself, whether it's these interpersonal relationships or it's fucking space baboons where, they're no longer fucking Dunstan checking into the moon. It's now fucking horrifying. So, as a kind of tongue-in-cheek joke, I enjoyed it, but as a set piece, it wasn't necessarily that enthralling.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to read that as a tongue-in-cheek joke. I'm not disagreeing with you.
I don't think it was necessarily that intentional as a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I do think there's something there in the lineage, because I've always thought when I watched this movie that there was something in the nostalgia of the way space travel is presented. Even if you're seeing a futuristic view of it, it is firmly rooted in iconography of NASA and a very, shall we say, laser-focused and myopic view of space
Yeah.
travel, which is you start on Earth, you go to the moon, then you go, wherever. Whereas if this is not a Star
You
Wars,
just move down the
where
line.
you get to go into a ship and go wherever the fuck
I was
you
going to say,
want.
there's no
This is
there's
still
no
rooted-
hyperspace where
no.
you can travel anywhere in
This
30
is
minutes.
rooted in the American lineage of space travel.
Right. Space colonialism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's primed initially as space horror, then it turns to space baboons, and then afterwards, I was like, remember those space baboons? That was kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one of the things I did absolutely love in the early portion of the film is my favorite part of the film. God damn it. Favorite part of the film because
What, Toussaint?
Nothing.
I'll fight you.
Whatever.
I
I'll win.
love didn't fight words.
I just said I'd fight you. I didn't say I'd win.
Okay.
I love the idea of a trip to the moon being turned into just a regular old flight. The idea of even the stewardess handing out a hot towel as they're about to have the meal before they arrive.
You got to
on the
pay
moon.
how,
Yeah, I was
how
going to
much
say
for a fuck-
$125 for a
Yeah.
pillow and blanket.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty much, that's current day shit.
Fuck that.
Not literally, but pretty much.
Yeah.
Any amenities that you would think should basically be, courtesy to you because you're on a fucking machine that may crash at any second. I think you can afford to give your passengers.
How about the idea too of Brad Pitt's character having to travel commercial to get to the moon to allay suspicion? When
You know
this
what's
seems like
interesting
this
about
has
that?
got to be the most secretive organization
Well,
there is. So
here's my question. Because I didn't hear every line, because it was sometimes a quiet movie.
Yes.
And I am hearing impaired. Was it explicitly mentioned that there was anything other than commercial? I mean, I know there would obviously be like NASA or something like that, but in general, wouldn't that be the only real way
there
for
is
him to
there is a
travel?
line of dialogue that says that to try to have this
Okay.
not become a fear that we're sending somebody on a mission.
Which makes sense.
Yes, you
okay,
need to
that's why I
travel
wanted to make sure,
commercial.
just because I could see that being the case. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure. So, okay.
But it does lead to some of the better parts of the film, in my opinion. But at the same time, it also gives the audience a glimpse into what this real world truly is, and not just if you are a NASA pilot or whatever, or if you also work on this extraordinarily enormous scaffolding they have that goes from the Earth's surface up into space that you could actually fall from and fall through Earth's atmosphere onto the ground.
Yeah.
Which I actually thought that whole sequence was fascinating because that I've never seen anything like that.
The only thing I could think of when I saw that sequence is what would Neil deGrasse Tyson say?
Oh, I don't care.
Neither do I. That was actually, sadly, I did think that, but in a mocking
Yeah.
internal monologue
Yeah.
tone. Should I really quickly say some opening thoughts
Please.
for myself?
Please.
No,
We've been leading up to this.
Unfortunately, this film did not work for me. I don't really dislike it.
It was crap Astra?
Oh, you. Bad Astra is right there for you, though. I left the theater basically liking it, the bare minimum, and now I'm a few days removed, and it's been a while since I've seen a space movie where I haven't really given it a second thought after I saw it. I feel like if you're gonna set your movie in space, there's almost an obligation to have a grandeur to it that I just think this movie lacked. Even if I would concede that it certainly attempted, and I can understand why it did work for others. I thought that a few things sunk this film. First of all, I actually think Brad Pitt was miscast. I don't think he gave a bad performance necessarily, and I really like Brad Pitt. But I think two things. One, that it's unfortunate timing that I think that this and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood reminded most of America, I think, of what we love about Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And I think Ad Astra reminds us why he doesn't step outside of his range more often. Which is to say that I don't think he in any way sinks this film, so to speak, and that he's given a bad performance. But every time he was emoting, so to speak, or giving us some of those whisper narrations, I was thinking that this was slightly out of his grasp, from my perspective. Another thing is, for me personally, this film did coincide with another space film that I saw in 2019, which was a Swedish film called Aniara, which wonderfully portrayed a kind of capitalist society that would start to actually exist in space, and the way people would kind of gravitate toward that economy. Be pulled toward that economy, and the way that life would go on living, and it's almost like nothing's changed, even if it looks like, fucking Apple designed it, and I kind of appreciated that. So, because, like Alex said, that aspect of this movie is slightly backgrounded and not quite touched upon, that part I felt slightly lacking. And then if we go in finally to the actual emotional crux of this film, I thought the father-son dynamic was mostly lacking because of a convergence of things that just didn't quite work for me, whether it was Brad Pitt's performance or also the god-awful narration. I'm sorry, it just didn't work for me.
That's fine.
Because
I can totally see how that would not work.
I was going to say, it's not so much that I think it's... I called it god-awful, whatever. I'm hyperbolic. It's not so much that I think it was such a bad swing and a miss. It's just because the moment it happened and kept going, I never got on that train, and the train never came back to the station for me personally, so I couldn't get back on. And if I hear the character having to say things like, "Oh, the sins of the father were passed on to the son,"
step on the dinosaur.
It's just one of those things where it's like, oh, because it's so committed to it, it kept me at an arm's length. I actually agree with Toussaint in that I loved the confrontation, and that implies more hostility than there actually was.
Right.
But the actual scene of them inside the spaceship, I thought that was a level of level-headedness, I guess I would say, that I was not expecting, but yet made total organic sense, and I absolutely ate up both performances, and I loved what was happening between them and the scripting. I think the film ruined it the moment they got out, and I said this to Alex, I'm like, what worked in Good Will Hunting in 1999 does not quite work in 2019, because for Tommy Lee Jones to be literally tethered to him and have to say, you gotta let go, 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 you gotta let go. I know that was really annoying for me to say 10 times, but he says
more
it
annoying to hear
more.
from him in the movie.
I was gonna say he says it more times than I just did, and I was like, there we're back onto Alfonso Cuarón's gravity levels of just fucking overbearing symbolism, and all the goodwill that I had for their final confrontation was slightly airlocked.
Airlocked.
Excuse me.
Another space
I know,
term,
man.
this guy.
Airlocked out the window for me. So I'll say this. Overall, I don't regret watching it, and I can see why anybody would like it, because there is a potent message here between this father and son relationship, and maybe it's because I don't have a bone to pick with my own father.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, I don't have a personal thing, so I have a bone to pick in the same way that any male who's a son of a father has, but I don't have a specific one, which a lot of people could have.
Right.
So because I don't have that personal
You went
journey,
to space and became an evil dictator.
No. What did it? No.
Jeffrey.
Oh. So because I don't have that personal attachment to it, like if I did, I could actually understand why that would even supersede any of the inner workings of this. But because I didn't, it just didn't work for me. I personally just thought that Apocalypse Space Daddy was a mediocre movie at best.
Okay.
And I pretty much agree with anyone who's raving about it as to what it had to offer. It just didn't offer it to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will say I had a little hard time with the ending with Tommy Lee Jones floating away, because I am unfortunately someone who saw Space Cowboys. So
at least that made sense.
Yeah, but at the same time, like him floating away and like the image of Tommy Lee Jones on the moon at the end of Space Cowboys was just a little too close for me.
It's a good movie.
Oh boy, it was Wild Hogs in
I
space.
watched it. Yeah, but no. Don't make me defend Clint Eastwood, you prick.
You hate to be here. I also rewatched The Mule when I was on my trip to London. So.
Oh, man. I will always be grateful for The Mule for giving us the John Mulaney, Pete Davidson review of The Mule, which is great. If anyone hasn't looked it up, look it up on SNL.
Yeah, that movie in general is just not that super.
Are you kidding me? The Mule, man? Like, to get to 90 years old and have 2 threesomes? Like, I'm feeling good about my life. I'm only 40. I have so much to live for. Anyway.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I touched on it a little bit early on, and maybe I'm the only person who is even thinking about this. But I do find that this film hits a very interesting note that I don't necessarily think is the sole purpose, because I think what everyone's already hitting on, which is the relationship between Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones, is the main draw in the finale of this film and throughout the entirety of it. But I do love the idea of Tommy Lee Jones basically making it his life's work to prove something, and then having to have somebody just sit him down and say, nope.
You already did.
I was going to say,
You already did.
You were wrong, and that doesn't mean that you didn't prove something. Like, you made it to fucking Neptune, and
You went to...
it's just us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that aspect of the film goes a little bit under the radar at the very end.
I'd agree.
And I think that it's one of the more interesting aspects of it, because there are not many properties out there that will pretty much take a side and plant a flag on this idea that there is a definitive decision that has been made on if there is life in the galaxy other than just us. I mean, if you look at all kinds of different places, whether it's religion or, I mean, there's so many different avenues of culture and just people and just generations and history, that this idea of there being spirits or other beings or whatever, like,
But
no
now
one...
there's a definitive answer in this film.
Well, there's a definitive answer, and it just goes out of its way to try to rule things out, saying, we fucking went as far as we could really go, and it's just space.
Yeah,
It's just
but
space.
the flip side of that coin, and something I actually did like about the movie, was that in that final act and whatnot, that the movie does give credence to the fact that, almost in a sympathetic light, that it's not a non-worthwhile journey.
No.
Right.
It is.
You're right, and so the way he says that, though, when he frames it, that it's something where it's like, just because you didn't get what you set out to do doesn't mean that
You
there
didn't
was...
accomplish it.
Yeah, and that was obviously his fatal flaw in both his relationship with his son and family, and also with his work, because he never thought that what he had was something to actually take back to humanity and share with them.
Yeah.
Which
You can't just bring back nothing. You didn't just bring back nothing. You also brought back some pretty pictures.
But I also think it makes his actions from Neptune very interesting, as in the grand scheme of things. I mean, he almost gives this wizard from Wizard of Oz type vibe when people on Earth are talking about all these pulses that are coming from outer space, and he's almost now this man behind the curtain who's, look, there are aliens.
Yeah, I've been trying to stop that shit. I'm trying to, yeah. Some of my crew members went crazy and they, they fucked it up. And now I'm trying to, unfuck it.
Like father, like son, because let me tell you something really quick. We should talk about something that I think is going under the radar, which is that Brad Pitt's character is a horrible person. Because, in my opinion,
I'm kind of with you.
he
on that.
straight up murders that entire crew.
He did not try to murder that.
Oh,
Okay, just because he did not.
He
Okay, so here's the thing.
He didn't have a gun!
Okay, here's the thing. Two things. One, something I did unfortunately find comically laughable was just the image of a space person literally, apparently able to just get into a spaceship. Like, people are just allowed to, Like, that just seems like a fucking security breach, if anything. But anyway,
I will say
he's allowed to do that. Which,
okay. I will. He's obviously not allowed to, although he does.
He is.
Why
does that door work from the outside?
Well, there's going to be a lot of different types of technicians.
I will say
you got to work on it. Is that beyond the scope of belief that you would actually have multiple entrances into this fucking rocket in order to work on
one
it?
that just allows it to be opened by anybody.
Well,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Who the fuck's going to go underneath the fucking rocket?
Maybe not in this universe, but in real life here, no one's too worried about a carjacking in space. Like,
no one.
You're not really.
They have fucking pirates.
No,
they have fucking pirates.
I said in the. Okay, Woody
They're
Allen.
not going to get to the fucking. They're not going to get inside of the base and
stop people.
But no, it's not. It's not the same thing. Okay.
No. Okay.
Shut up.
In this universe, yes, they should be concerned about Bakhard Abi coming over and wanting to become the captain.
But even then. They're not going to just go under
Tucson
the fucking...
has given us
go in the,
very Italian
They're not going to go...
fists,
They're
by
not
which I mean his thumb is very peacefully
the fucking vents
resting
of this
on his middle
and
finger
then look for the door.
as
you
the other
know
finger
why he did?
surrounds
Because he
him.
knew it was there. Because he's worked on fucking rockets. Because he's a fucking astronaut.
I was going to say, I'm actually with Tucson. Like, if there's anybody who knows how to get onto this ship, it's probably
not so
him.
much that you don't know how to
Yeah.
get onto the ship. It's the idea that a ship would even let that happen.
What,
We can get to the fucking moon, but we can't fucking figure out a child lock.
Hey, come on, man.
I was gonna say,
we're talking about
is
the
ship
same people
sentient here?
who sent people up for the
ship
fucking
allowed
Challenger
it.
explosion.
All I'm
okay,
saying is
sometimes
it's a comical
groupthink.
image. Oh, I'm just going to climb up this little ladder, and here, I'm in the spaceship, especially when it's in a fucking sequence launch. Like, if it was somehow, like, not in an actual important part of, the... I don't know, trajectory of fucking launching a rocket. They're literally counting down. You don't, why would it be good for a door to somehow have an actual mechanism that allows it to be open during a sequence launch?
See, you know what's great about this is nobody really loves Tom Cruise's action stunts in Mission Impossible as much as you do, and yet you're getting caught up on this.
Yeah, but this is a totally
This is not a
different tone.
fucking action movie.
No, it's not.
This is an intellectual drama.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's totally different gear.
It is.
Okay, but...
All I'm saying is it's fucking comical. Give me that. The image of someone literally climbing up a ladder to be like, hello, can I be in your tree fort?
This is Doubtfire?
Yes.
I will say this.
Okay.
I will say that I'm going to slightly agree with you, only that if it was during the launch sequence and he's able to, get on there without getting burned to death...
I see your contention, I understand, but I just the thought that there wouldn't be a fucking door, another fucking door on this.
I know why there are hatches in spaceships. I'm not a fucking idiot. I'm just saying, why do these things work in times in which they should be in some way, I don't know, depowered or something?
You know, Nick, maybe it is sort of a blindside because nobody thought to think that somebody would go underneath the fucking
they have fucking space pirates
to go underneath the fucking rocket when it's about to fucking ignite. Who the fuck does that?
All right, but let's go back to my
man.
original point where I think Brad Pitt's character is a horrible person.
Okay.
Because I genuinely think he murders that entire crew. I'm sorry, you sneak into a rocket ship. Okay. So that's...
Okay, I can understand,
And you don't think that people are going to, quote-unquote, follow protocol? What was your thing? Did you think that they were going to, be like, you know what? You got through the hatch. You are now the captain of this ship. What did you think was going to happen? So when he's like, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Yeah, you did the moment you set foot in that fucking spaceship.
Well, I don't think that he thought as far ahead that he would have to kill
I'm just saying,
the
he's a
people
horrible
in there.
person.
I mean, he was just... He had to see the mission through to its.
He did,
to
and
its
so it's
end,
I understand it as a character motivation.
Yeah.
But boy, is that a.
I don't think it was a conscious choice where he was trading the lives of these people in order to meet his dad. I don't think it went that far. I think it just he wasn't thinking. You try to go on there, and then you realize,
see the way
shit.
We see the way he coldly throws the body on the moon when he probably could have just shoved it into the passenger seat.
No, I'm with Nick on this.
Yeah,
I think
he probably look. He
I'm
probably,
just saying, as
he
far
probably,
as I do think he has a.
I think he has sociopathic tendencies.
Yeah.
I think those are very much apparent from just him talking about himself. Like,
I don't care how fit you are.
Thank you.
Okay.
I thought you were saying that to us.
Early in this film, there is a line of dialogue that they mention that during the time when he's falling off the scaffolding that's from space down to Earth, that his pulse never goes above 43, which I believe
they say that a
sounds
lot.
impossible.
Yeah.
No matter what kind of weed you're on.
no, he's just unperturbed by everything. So I think that also is inclination of a sociopathic tendency.
Absolutely, which is why I think he's a bad person. Like, I don't think it means he's a bad character or anything like that. But
I just literally feel like in that moment where you are free falling from.
I get, because I think he had a death wish, and I think that's the only reason why he took the mission.
Free falling from 140,000 feet in the air.
I'm trying to say, I
not
think
going
he's...
above 42 when the normal human heartbeat is 60.
Okay, we also can't fucking land on Mars. But the thing is I think, I think that is, I will stand my ground on the hatch on the spaceship. But I genuinely think that was just supposed to be a fucking shorthand for the fact that he is suicidal in some ways and whatnot.
Okay.
In the face of what he could or could not achieve. But I get what you mean. Yes, it's a technical impossibility. It's not like it's, but so is Subway on the moon right now.
Yeah, it still looked awesome.
It sure
I thought it looked great.
By the way, I was just out in front of a Subway today.
Just on a whim.
Yeah. Well, no, there was a liquor store next to it. And there was nobody in that Subway. So I'm hoping that they are having better business up on the moon.
Probably. I would think that it's a good possibility.
Well,
Hopefully
with the
artist
scarcity of resources,
there's probably a lot of work up there.
Yeah, that's probably
I
true.
love the idea of the moon, and it's like a 12-minute sequence in this film, but the idea of that just being a governless area where anything goes is just fascinating to me. I mean, we've seen those kind of arenas in many types of different media, whether it be film or in novels or any sort of other literature. But just
how can you keep it under control?
I mean, the idea of just having a like you would think that the moon would just become its own sort of place at some point, but all these different countries and continents and cultures just at some point just all arriving there and just
space race.
Yeah, this is for everybody. So
space race wars.
Also, too, that whatever that Apple series is that Joel Kinnaman is in, where Russia wins the moon race. That doesn't look that good.
I was disappointed to hear Joel Kinnaman was in it because I was actually on board when I heard the premise.
Her name's Katana.
Yeah, he's not a good actor.
Should we watch that one day?
Suicide Squad?
What?
I'll watch anything DC these days, sadly.
We reviewed that.
No, I know.
Okay.
I didn't mean should we watch it for the first time?
Okay, I thought it was one of those it was so bad that you repress it out of your memory, because I do that sometimes. I don't mean to do it, but I just realize, oh shit, I just locked that away.
I'll watch that again.
Yeah.
We should do it.
Nope.
No what? You won't watch it again?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm good.
I think it'll be interesting to revisit, especially when the new film comes out.
I think I can just watch the new film and forget that other thing existed.
Did you? Oh, you did. Never mind. I was going to say, did you watch Aquaman? But yeah, you were all like, it's not very good. It's so silly.
I didn't say that.
That's what it sounded like.
Literally
just like
wow,
that.
Fuck you, man. I thought it was okay. I'm not going to talk about superhero films right now. We're gonna finish. We're gonna close out Ad Astra.
We will, but next year is going to be the first year where DC will have a larger offering than Marvel. Very interesting.
What films do they have?
They have Birds of Prey.
Okay.
They have Wonder Woman.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
and they have one other release, I believe.
They're gonna do no. I
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
Suicide
I don't know what
Squad.
That's
No.
not next year.
Oh, that's not next year.
I don't,
No.
Are you sure?
I
Maybe
thought
they
there
got
was a
Cyborg.
third. I thought there was a third.
I can't think of anything.
But I
that would
think
come out
Marvel.
that
I think
soon.
Marvel only has 2 offerings next
Okay.
year. So
Did you hear, by the way, that the
Oh,
new
is-
Doctor Strange,
In the Mouth of Madness.
yeah, is going to be a quote unquote the first Marvel horror film?
sure.
Yeah,
So is New Mutants.
and look how well they're trying to hide that one.
Where is it?
It's on its
Somewhere.
6th release date, I think.
Yeah.
In
Damn,
April
just
of next
put
year.
it out.
No,
Now,
it's-
it's funny
shit, even
because-
A24 released like Under the Silver Lake.
Yeah. You know, it's weird, though, because the guy who's directing the new Doctor Strange, he directed the movie Sinister, so it's like it's just like David F. Sandberg when he did Shazam, like, he does have horror roots. And actually, Shazam has some pretty gruesome moments in a way that you don't normally see in superhero mainstream movies. But I doubt the MCU will actually do anything that's on the same level, and this is not like crazy, but like in Shazam where the board meeting goes fucking haywire and blood and guts are splayed
I
across.
think they would in something similar to that in Doctor Strange. I think it being actually like
I guess they wouldn't do it with the
Towing
same
the line
type of
horror
like
movie?
volume level of like this is an actual jump scare, and I don't
oh no, I could see it.
really?
Yeah,
Well, we'll see.
I don't. It's
They
not-
also say they're going to have a
it's not
gay
horror.
character, and look, oh, it's one of the fucking directors saying, yeah, my boyfriend, and then Steve going, okay, thank you very much. We'll get back to you later. Hi, I'm Captain America, and I'm helping you with your trauma. Like, that's not the fucking same thing at all.
No. Disney,
it isn't.
Disney doesn't really know how to handle that.
That was my little Mickey Mouse whistle.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Very good. So, Ad Astra,
Yeah.
I thought was actually a quite good film.
Are you doing your final thought?
I am.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that's what we were.
That's where we're at right now. Okay. I actually thought Ad Astra was quite good. And even though I have quarrels with the final scene and some of the pacing in the...
Did you say... I'm sorry. Yep. It's...
No, please.
I'm good.
No.
I'm good.
No, what?
It sounded like... Okay, Tucson is
No?
waving me off, which means I shouldn't speak.
Can you just, like...
Yeah.
I kind of now...
Yeah.
It sounded like Quirrells, which sounds like Professor Quirrell from Harry Potter
Okay.
instead of Quirrell.
I thought it sounded like
I was just laughing because I was just
corals.
thinking of a Ray Fiennes turban, but like multiple faces of them.
Okay.
Anyway.
I thought I, like, misspoke or something like
No,
that.
you did not.
No,
you did
it's just it sounded like Quirrells, and then I thought
Okay.
of multiple Ray Fiennes, and I'm sorry, but that's comedy.
Okay.
not. It is pretty funny. Anyway, continue.
So, I thought this was still pretty good, even if I did not love some of the choices in the climactic scene between the two father and son characters. That being said, this was a pretty good film, and I quite enjoyed it. So, 3.5 out of 5 for me for Ad Astra.
I think that this was a very visually beautiful film. That really the visuals, even though it's a space movie, it feels entirely after the fact because it's more of a focus on like Brad Pitt's character arc, which I enjoyed. And yeah, I enjoyed it and I'd recommend it. I give it a 3 out of 5.
I would give it a 2.5 out of 5.
I think that's fair.
Didn't quite work for me,
That's
but
okay.
it's certainly not bad.
Okay. Very good.
Would you say it was a? It was.
Tucson, this is not your bag,
It was
man.
it was an okay film. I just gave up halfway, and I was just like,
Yeah.
there's no more puns.
This is not your bag.
Yeah,
No.
2.5 Babadooks for me.
fuck you.
Yeah. Digging up that old fucking thing. All right.
What a running gag.
I want you to put that back where you found it.
You know what? It's a good segue though, because it's that time of year
Yeah,
to be
that's
talking.
why I did it.
Oh, sure. even though we did a review of the Babadook, I think in like May of that year, we are going to talk about a couple horror films coming up here in the horror movie season, as we are recording this current episode in early October of 2019. And we're not quite sure exactly which film we're going to do at the end of October yet, but we're planning to do a horror movie on our last episode when we're going to be recording it around Halloween. But coming up next week, Toussaint's going to be out of town, so it'll just be myself and Nicholas.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about the somewhat classic horror film, An American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
You sound like you're from London. Sorry, I just had to get that out. I've only seen this film the one time. Our friend Kenny showed it to me and said he was a huge fan of it, and I could see why.
Kenny Ortega?
God, second time on this episode. Wow. And this film does have a super iconic sequence in it, but also has a lot of other really fun parts that I actually think Nick will quite enjoy.
I was going to say, it's one of the few classic canon horror films that I've never seen before.
And of those, I don't know every single one of them, and I obviously have not seen most of them. This is a super rare occurrence where a classic horror film and also a horror film like this that I have seen and Nick hasn't.
Yeah.
So we will both have seen it when we meet up to talk about it on our next episode. And that'll be, I think, a lot of fun because even though, from what I remember, it's definitely not the best horror film and it's definitely not the best film of this genre, it is definitely a film that I think has aged well since its release. So that'll be coming up on episode 205 of this lovely podcast we like to have.
Aww.
So, from Toussaint Egan, Nick Cheney.
Per aspera ad astra.
Okay, Nick. That's enough for now.
Myself, Alex Diekman. Thank you very much, as always, for joining us on Film Tank. Looking forward to talking with you next time.